By God, I think we're on time tonight. Somewhat. Anyway, welcome to the Horror Syndicate Discourse, or you can call it whatever you want. It's the Horror Syndicate Show. We do all kinds of stuff here, okay? We're not going to limit ourselves to one thing. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is the beginning of a new season as we close each season out with, and I'm calling them season even though it's a year, but we close each season out with the best of the last year. And last year we closed out the season with the best 25 of 2022. Can't wait till we get to 2025 so I could be like the best of 25. But anyway, and our number one movie was Barbarian. And that is what we're going to talk about today. We didn't get a chance to talk about Barbarian and a few of the good ones from last year that came out. Even the new Scream movie we didn't get a chance to talk about. So we're going to take the opportunity to do a few of those in 2023. Maybe we'll get to a couple 2023 movies. I've only seen one so far, and it was Megan. Nate saw Skinnamarink Dink or whatever the hell it was called. Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, and then a song, a kid's song or something. And then there's a couple out there. There's one, I think it's called Sicko or Sick or some shit. Anyway, Barbarian I found very overrated. Tell me why you think it's overrated while I introduce Nathan Thomas Milner to combat your overrated talk. Hi, Nate.
Hello.
So, you think Barbarian's overrated?
Of course, that's why I made it number one.
Yes, me too.
I mean, no, it's not overrated. I've seen a lot of the collective arguments about it. And just don't agree.
Yeah, I put up a post yesterday asking what people thought of it, and there are a lot of people with opinions, and we'll get into that a little bit too as we do your 1-star Amazon reviews. So that'll be fun. And what do you think of that Skinnamarink movie? Was it Skinnamarink? Is that how you say it?
Skinnamarink. Yep.
I keep thinking of that song that was on Barney all the time, like Sesame Street.
Skinnamarink-a-dinky dink. Yeah. It's very interesting. It's definitely a movie that some people are just walking out on. This is a movie that asks you to immerse yourself completely. So I know there's just a lot of modern audience members who just aren't going to do that.
So it's definitely one, turn off your phone, turn off everything around you, and go see it in the theater.
Yeah, and I actually think it's best to watch it in your house as much as I like they're making money because it takes place in a suburban home in the 90s. And it's really about that feeling that you get especially when you're a kid, but anytime when you wake up in like the middle of the night in your house and the lights are out and you hear something or you can't see things, but you see your eyes play tricks on you as you're trying to adjust, or even like you're in between sleep and awakeness. And that's how it is. And it's from a kid's perspective. These kids wake up in their house and mom and dad are gone, and it's just it's a very experimental film, and I can't say I loved it. I don't hate it either. I think it's creepy. It's a creepy movie, but you have to go along with it. You have to sit and watch it and try to place yourself there.
I was gonna say, I remember whenever you came out of it, you had a hard time describing it. I'm like, well, hold on, who am I talking to? First of all, but I'm interested to see it. So,
well, it's like I'm not. A lot of young people are getting it because, the creepypasta thing. The Slender Man, the I think it's called Yellow Rooms or Back Rooms or something. There's like these about spaces. So like there's a video my daughter showed me called Back Rooms where it's just shots of never ending rooms that are like yellow and and they're empty. And if you go with it, it can be a little creepy, and that's kind of how this is. It's like if you're watching, you're like, after a while, you're like, I just, the way the sound is, the way the images are, I watched it in a completely empty theater.
Yeah, you're by yourself.
Yeah, and I tried to get immersed in it. I will say I got to where I was like, Jesus, this is an hour and 40 minutes. I don't know. I think I'd like to watch it again in my living room by myself with the lights off. I think that really would be the good thing. But again, I think some critic said, and I think it was perfect. They said this is the kind of movie that you should come across when you're flipping channels one night, and you just stumble across it. You don't know what the fuck it is, and you're just watching it at night when everyone else is sleeping. And it will affect you. And that made me think of when I stumbled upon The Evil Dead for the first time, because I was up late flipping channels and I got to that, and just the creepiness of the first Evil Dead movie, just the sound design, the imagery, when they pull in, just something as simple as that shot where you're following behind the car driving up the path to the cabin. Remember the sound goes out. You don't hear leaves. You don't hear the car. You don't hear anything. It's just, but then you hear that boom, boom.
Yeah, against the cabin door.
Yeah, the cabin, the swing.
Yeah, the swing.
And there was something so brilliant and eerie about that. And that's what this movie kind of has. It has that kind of like, what is this? But there's going to be a whole lot of people just think it's a big piece of shit.
I may go, if it's still there, I might go see it Friday because I'm curious. Shannon Hurst asks why haven't I ever heard of it. I'm not sure if she's talking about Barbarian but she does say Barbarian ? If you haven't seen Barbarian, check it out. It's on HBO Max currently, I believe, right? It's
on HBO, yeah.
It's a lot of fun, tons of fun, unless you're Sean Sheridan. But let me introduce Seth. Seth, howdy. Look, check out that camera angle. He's in our tour, this guy.
I'm on the thirds.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Great. I'm great, man. I'm really good. I hope you're good too, Nate. I didn't ask. I'm sorry. Maybe I did. I don't remember.
Okay, we'll get into that.
Yeah. yeah. Evil Dead 1 was the first movie to make me cry. That's what turned me onto horror. That is awesome. That's a great story, in my opinion, to have. If something made you cry and you wanted more, that's killer. I love it. I don't know that a horror movie ever made me cry. There's a few that did scare me when I was younger, but Evil Dead I didn't see till I was a teenager because I thought Dead Alive was Evil Dead. So I was lying to so many people. Yeah, I've seen Evil Dead, but it was Dead Alive. Anyway, tonight, and Seth, have you watched any 2023s yet? There's only a few. Yeah. I've decided, guys, I am not going to push the envelope in 2023 and try to watch 60 different horror movies. I'm only going to watch maybe, 25 or something like that. That last year, watching so many and then trying to rank all 58 of those was a pain in the butt. So, I'm gonna do what I think, Nate, you tried to do at one point, which was just watch the ones that are higher up on some of these lists. You see,
Yeah, I always look up best of horror lists and like what's got the highest ratings on Rotten Tomatoes or stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, I need to check those out first.
Oh, okay, daughter. This movie hurt my brain walking out of the theater. Oh my god!
First of all, you're trying to find logic in a silly B horror movie because that's what it's supposed to be. Like Zach Kreger, who wrote it, said people were thinking this is supposed to be like some A24 message-driven agenda film, and he goes, "It wasn't." He goes, "I was just writing. We'll get into how he wrote it, but which I love. But he said it's just." This is supposed to be like Malignant was. I even think I said that. This is like last year's Malignant.
Yeah, you did.
It's just a wacky, crazy, illogical, wild movie.
For sure. Yeah, it does. It's in Malignant. One of the things that really drew my attention to that. I don't think, did we ever talk about that movie?
Yeah, I think we did when it came out.
I can't remember, but like that one, a lot of it had a little bit of a mystery to it. But the one big thing that kind of drew me to the Malignant was how 90s it felt, like late 90s, early 2000s it felt.
This is just a movie where you like hit, some people say, see it in the theater and get the audience reaction, because I don't know if people who watch this movie at home got the same experience as a theater, because it's one of those what the fuck moments, or
Yeah.
people are laughing, cheering, whoa, wow. I mean, it's one of those movies where it really would work. I saw it in theaters with my wife, my daughter, and we loved it. It was highly entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping your daughter had the same reaction Reynolds did. I look over at him, and Reynolds had this giant grin on his face. He was like, "That was fun," and that's I agree. That's one of the things. I didn't think too deeply about it. I had fun with it. It was the most fun movie of horror of 2023 for me, and I just every time I rewatched my top 10, I think, for the most part, and when I came back to Barbarian, I was like, man, this movie's just too much fun. Like movies like The Menu. It was a really good movie, but I had so much fun with Barbarian, and I watched it 3 times and still had quite the amount of enjoyment. And like Seth, and I did what Seth did, and I mentioned this last week. I did not watch a trailer, and Seth did the same thing, which I think is great. That's why I've tried not to watch an Evil Dead trailer, because I want to kind of be surprised.
Well, I didn't like Barbarian came out of nowhere. Like she said, she hadn't heard about it. Like I went to the theater the week before it came out to see something. I don't remember what it was. And I look over on the wall and there's a poster for Barbarian. I'm like, what the fuck is Barbarian? And again, because I'm like, I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
The title is like really like, what is
Barbarian?
That mean? Yeah. And so I had no idea what it was. And I did watch the trailer, and I was like, okay, this looks very, very interesting. One thing we talk about Sam Raimi, Evil Dead. Sam Raimi was a huge influence on this film.
Mm-hmm.
And Zach said that it's like a layer film, like the top floor and the shit that happens on the top floor is like David Fincher stuff. He goes, and what's underneath is a Sam Raimi movie. So I kind of think that. Yeah.
That's funny. As far as me, Keith, our resident millennial, he sends over every single trailer. And he sent that one over, but I listened to what Seth said, because sometimes Seth has some good things to say, right, Seth?
When we let him.
That's debatable. Debatable.
That's debatable. I don't know.
I wouldn't trust me.
I would. Yeah. What did you think when you saw it? Like, I mean, because you again did not go in with seeing a trailer. Blurry face. Oh, he's having connection problems again.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Seth. Tell us what you thought.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear what you guys were saying. I started.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Started that bullshit again. Yeah, I only saw this the once. I saw it in the theater. I was hearing a lot about it. And I think from you guys especially were saying that it was really good. And I had to wait a bit before it came to the theater around here. But another thing that piqued my interest too was the fact that it was directed by Zach Cregg, who I've been a fan of since The Weirdest Kids You Know. I don't know if you saw that sketch show. It's fucking hilarious to me.
You mentioned it quite a bit,
I was happy to do a horror.
Yeah.
So I was excited to see him do a horror movie. Was that?
So I watched the TV show, and him and Trevor did that Miss March movie together. They directed that, right? Co-directed or something. Yeah. Rest in peace, Trevor. He passed away like a year or two ago.
Yeah, a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I almost forgot. If you're new, go subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. If you haven't followed us on Facebook, do the same thing. We're Facebook Live on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Fridays now, because we just can't get enough. And we're gonna get into the thick of this, but it's I don't know, man.
I guess all the film critics in the world are wrong.
Yeah, they are. But let's find out some Amazon critics, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Nate's got some 1-star Amazon reviews. Let's find out what these Amazon critics say about Barbarian. You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. I love this one. This kills me. This is I'm assuming this is a young person. just because of the nature of the thing. But also kind of goes to, if you don't pay attention, which is a possibility, if you don't pay attention or you don't know what the hell is going on, you're not gripping things. This is a way off review. All right, so 1-star review makes no sense, which we hear a lot of people say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first off, since when did inbreeding create a superhuman? Yeah, I'll give you that. Doesn't it make you disabled 99% of the time? Second, the homeless man said she'd been there 40 years. The flashback was from like the 50s.
Was it?
No.
I mean,
that's what makes me think
it was the 80s,
it
right?
was the 80s. Like that was make me think they weren't paying attention, or there's someone young, because first of all, when he gets in his car in the very beginning, the heat of the moment is playing on the radio.
Yeah.
And the radio.
Don't they mention Reagan at one point too?
Yeah, the DJ mentions Ronald Reagan, President Reagan. So no, it's not the 50s. Okay. The flashback was from like the 50s, so only 1 or 2 generations of inbreeding made her that messed up. First of all, if it was the 50s, it would be 1 or 2 generations. All right, remember. Third, if that monster can barely say, this is the best. You guys are going to love this. Third, if that monster can barely say baby and no other words, how the hell did it compose realistic Airbnb ads and confirmation emails?
Yeah, they weren't paying attention. There's a whole thing about that at the very beginning of the movie, and then in the second. Okay.
They think the mother was the one.
Yeah, I mean,
that started the Airbnb.
I'm assuming the Airbnb had Wi-Fi, and she has her own laptop, and all that stuff. So,
well, my wife was asking that, like, what do you think? Like, since the guy never left, and I was like, I think he probably lost the ability to walk or whatever. Like, he's in a bed, so I think he probably like locked himself down in there, and they came to evict him or something. No one was there, so they just like sold the property, and Justin Long bought it, and they turned it into Airbnb. So it's like the company that owns or works for Justin Long that's doing that. But he thought the mother thing was running no Airbnb. And if she didn't create the ads and the old man did, how the heck did he find out about Airbnb? He's been living in a hole for 50 years. Lastly, that guy looked 40 or 50 in the 1950s. How is he still alive? He'd have to have been like 120. Made 0 sense. Super dumb.
Wow.
So I shit my pants when I read that. Okay.
Yeah, that really has to be a young person. Okay, so is there more?
There's more, but that was the first one. Yeah.
Okay, one question I have about this. So it shows the old man, as they eloquently put it, act like a gas service guy. He unlocks the window. I would assume that he was using those women to not inbreeding them.
Well, he was inbreeding. He was screwing. He was a pedophile. He was having sex with his daughters and his granddaughters and everything, because and in the tapes, the videotapes of all the different women he was videotaping and probably raping and impregnating, and I counted, there was like 45 tapes down there. So 45 women he abducted and held against their will and raped
them. He had
a
great time. Like, Jesus.
But that's the thing. Like, he'd had to have had sex with his own children and all that.
Yeah,
shit.
I guess okay.
So another one, 1 star. The hype is a lie. Get a lot of hype about this movie. I had a conversation about that. Like, it's unfortunate that a lot of movies catch heat simply because of how other people react to them, or how popular they are, or how the hype. It was so hyped up. You just heard Sean say that everyone was hyping it. So when I saw it, I was let down. And it's like, well, that's not the fucking movie's fault.
Yeah.
Like, if people are talking about, first of all, they're not saying it for any other purpose other than they liked it a lot. So. This overrated, we talked about that. Is something really overrated or underrated or whatever? We could do a whole show on overrated, underrated. But all right, this person said the hype is a lie. This movie is so stupid. Not scary at all. Oh, wait, there were 2 jump scares. So, yeah, not scary, not suspenseful, and the so-called twist. Oh, my God, so dumb. Seriously, probably the worst movie I've ever seen. No, it is. It is the worst movie I have ever seen. And Stephen King should give me my $15 back because his recommendation is why I bought it instead of renting. And even then, I want my $4 back. You will not be afraid of Airbnbs after this.
Were we supposed to be afraid of Airbnbs after that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Is this the Jaws for Airbnbs?
1 star, confusion. I honestly don't understand the hype around this movie. Don't get me wrong. The acting is phenomenal. Staging and costume design are also great. It's the story that bothers me. I honestly hated every minute of it. But you just gave it compliments on staging, phenomenal costume design, acting, but you hated every minute of it. Okay. Absolute garbage. This one made me laugh. I'd rather fart in a shoebox than watch this movie again.
You can do both.
Yeah. Shame on everyone that had a hand in making this one.
Fart in a shoebox, huh?
1 star from Buster. Making white men be the bad guys all the time. First of all, there was a white guy that was a good guy in the movie. Please stop portraying white men as evil. Almost all the new movies are now always making white men be bad. This is discrimination. Here's a 2 star. Not great. Started off so good, then ended not so good. Have seen it before. Why can't these writers come up with new material? Overhyped. 3 stars. This movie was overhyped as the best horror movie of the year, but left a lot of questions unanswered. You're not promised answers for everything. And that's something I had a conversation with another writer. I think it was... Oh, shit. I can't remember. But everyone wants answers. Everything answered now. No mystery, no enigma. Like,
what answers do you need from this?
Yeah, like what? Like, did we get all the answers we needed from Halloween? Did we get all the answers we needed? Like, no, we don't. Like, the unknown is what's kind of what's scary about it.
Actually, we
explaining everything.
We did get all the answers from Halloween because Dr. Loomis answered the one question we had: was that the boogeyman? Matter of fact, it was.
Matter of fact, it was. There's your answer.
So,
but why? Why did Michael do what he did? I need to know. Or this movie sucks.
Dr. Loomis goes through the whole movie explaining why Michael Myers did what he did. You know, I'm just saying. Anyway, sorry.
Well, that's it.
Okay, good. Those were good. Those were that first one was a doozy. So the 1950s were 70 years ago. So
I mean, just looking at the cars alone, they're all 80s or 70s
it was an 80s
cars.
station wagon. The guy, that his neighbor or whatever, like the way he was dressed, the mustache screamed 80s. Even inside the house, when you get that shot of the inside of the house, it's very 80s. I think it had the wood paneling on the walls and stuff. It's like, hey kid, know your decade.
If anything is 50s, it's the buildings and the houses and
yeah. But like, I mean, I don't know. It's scary to think that somebody looks at something that's clearly 80s and thinks it's the 50s, and that would mean I'm very old if that's the case. You too, Nate. Actually, all 3 of us are really old. We are anyway. So
I was born in the 40s, apparently.
Right. I would have been born in 1950, which my father-in-law was born in 1950, so I'd be 73 right now. Whew. Seth would be a young buck at 70. Anyway, if you can't tell, Jared's not here today. He got
working
called
man.
Got called into work. That's what he texted me right before the show with a sad emoji. So Barbarian, I love the way the movie starts. I love the way that the camera stays in the car when she goes up to the door. But I first of all, the character Georgia, what was her last name?
Georgina Campbell.
Yeah, so she's really good in this movie.
Yeah.
I really like her a lot because it's one of those things like I talk about with Nancy where she's adaptable to her situation, which I really like.
I love that, like, how the spooky, creepy music is playing outside as we're moving towards the vehicle.
Yeah.
like the audience knows that outside is scary, is
Right.
dangerous, and she goes into the car and she's in her safe zone where that dies off, and there's that music's gone. So it's like, all right, don't get out of the car. It's kind of the Hitchcock thing of here's the bomb, it's out here, and she's in there, and we're like, no, don't get out of your car.
Yeah, which another thing I was going to say that I really like about the way that the beginning is set up is how dark and rainy it is. You can't see the rest of the neighborhood.
It's a big plot point of the
Yeah.
movie. She doesn't know where she's at, really. She doesn't know
Yeah.
how that neighborhood looks.
Which I thought was really cool. And of course, we get to see.
Plus, it adds to the desperation of what am I going to do? It's not only night, but it's pouring down rain, and it's late, and I don't have a place to stay.
The bum. Yeah. So yeah, she doesn't have a place to stay, and all the hotels were booked. And I like how on guard she was with Skarsgård. I thought that was really Keith.
Well, that's yeah. Like I'll get into like I did some reading because a lot of the criticisms I saw, the 1-star reviews that I didn't talk about, was how everyone's making dumb decisions. Everyone's stupid in the movie, and no one's making right decisions. And I beg to differ. There's a purpose to that. Zach said, you guys may be interested in this. I think he said he wrote a, what was it? It was a big like movie, a Star Wars movie or some kind of movie he wrote for a script. But then he decided he wanted to do a writing exercise, and he had been reading the book by Gavin de Becker called The Gift of Fear. And Gavin de Becker is a guy who specializes in identifying violence and preventing violence. So he worked for like the government. He's worked with all kinds of organizations about the death threats and threats towards the government, towards officials. He's worked with celebrities, tons of celebrities, who get death threats all the time. And he's analyzed and worked with people who create violence against everyone. And of course, he wrote this book called The Gift of Fear. And that one kind of channels in on how women have to go through life that a lot of us don't understand or realize about how women have to be on guard and use their intuition and recognize red flags when dealing with men who may kill them, And so he goes through all these things of what women need to look at and what predators do that are things you need to understand, because he really teaches on people to use their intuitions. When you're with someone, you just kind of know they're off or there's something wrong or you feel uncomfortable. Mm. And women are taught or expected in our society to be nice and smile and be sweet and polite. And a lot of women trying to be polite end up getting victimized because they don't want to embarrass or they don't want to be called a bitch. They don't want to tell a guy no.
Right.
And also our culture, especially with movie culture, is if a woman says no, she just needs to be kind of coursed into it. We could court her, chase her, and get her to do this. And she'll go with me. Or maybe there's a chance. We're taught that Ducky is our hero in Pretty in Pink, who's pestering Molly Ringwald. Or all these movies we watched in the 80s, it was always like the guy can't get the girl, but if he just keeps being persistent, she'll come around. And his idea was like, no is a full sentence. We need to let women say no. Let it be a full sentence. If a man says no, end of conversation. If a woman says no, it's like, well, maybe she just needs some convincing, which Justin Long even says that in the movie when he's talking about the rape. Yeah, I did it. It took some convincing. Yeah, but we had sex. So he was reading this book and he said, I wonder, I'd like to play with this, but I'd like to write a scene. He just started out as a scene. He had no plan, no film. He didn't know where it was going. He just said, I'd like to write a little short story as an exercise in my basement. He's just typing of a conversation where the woman is making all of those intuitions, the right choices, talking to this guy. And she does. If you watch the movie, like she's thinking about it. Like she's weighing the options. She's reading him and his behavior and things. Everything he says, she's analyzing it in her brain. Now, the difference of this is women have to do that all the time. Men, we don't even think about that. We don't talk to a woman and think, wait, no, like she might hurt me, she might stab me, she might rape me, she might. We don't even think about that. But women have to think about it. You do.
Seth does all the time.
It's because Seth is only 3 foot. Yeah, I don't know. He might get beat up. But this guy worked with like the writer dealing with stalkers and things like that. And he made things. He's a lot of people who make death threats are not the people you need to worry about, because most people who are going to kill you don't tell you that they're going to kill you. And there's things like that. So he knows human behavior. He's been doing it for 40, 50 years. He knows the signs of over 50 years. And so he was reading that book. He wrote this script, and while he was writing it, he planned on Keith being in his head as a writer. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't have any plan. He just thought, okay, he's going to kill her. That was his plan as he was writing it. But then as he got down there, he said, this is fucking boring. Like, I know where this is going. I'm bored. This sucks. And then he said, what would I do if I don't go the other way? What's the left field kind of thing? And that's what he said. Giant naked woman comes out of nowhere and kills him. And that's where he stopped. And so he wrote this as like, sometimes we structure things and work things out, but he wrote this as I want to be surprised by where this is all going. And I know I've written that way. I know, Ray, I think you said you've written that way. Seth,
yeah.
I'm sure you've written that way. Where, like, it reminded me of like Tarantino. Christoph Waltz told a story about he was supposed to have lunch with Quentin one day, and Quentin called and canceled the lunch. And he said, "Oh, really? Are you all right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm just writing this scene, and I really want to know where it's going to go. I'm really excited to see what happens." And to me, that's like the display of what, as creators and writers, we don't get to experience stories like the audience does. That's when we get to experience it, when we write it.
Right.
So, like, we don't know where it's going, or we know, but then something else, you're writing, and all of a sudden you go, oh, well, this then happens, or he says this, or she says that, and this happens. And it's like, that's when you get excited. And that's when writing becomes so, it's out of your hands at that. And then you go back and you fine tune it and all that. But that discovery, that surprises. So that's how this script was written. So he said, no, I didn't write this with some kind of agenda or anything, even though he was thinking about how women have to navigate their lives daily when they deal with people, because if they reject this man, he may hurt me. He may scream at me. He may kill me. And so when you watch this movie in that first half, she is making conscious choices about whether I should go in that house, whether I should stay here, whether I should. And she's asking questions. And he, for the most part, is not giving red flags, but there are parts where his discomfort himself, because he realizes she's afraid.
Yeah.
He's nervous. That in
he's trying to make her comfortable too, Yeah.
But then he makes little comments like, well, because I might be a psycho killer who's trying to get you here, or broke in, and or he says something like, you can watch me make your tea this time.
Yeah,
like that. Or I was waiting for you, so you can watch me open the wine before I pour it. So the thing is, like, he's being considerate of her anxieties, but at the same time, it's creepy to even bring that up. I think that's what it is. Like, and just things like when she says, what's your name? She says Tess. He goes, that's a pretty name. And she's like, like he's that's a flirt in some ways. He's making it. It's not, but he may not mean anything. That's the thing. Like, men, I'll get into it in a minute, but there was something that was very timely to this that happened last week. An article that came out about things that men do that are creepy, that they don't understand are creepy. And I'll get in that in a minute, because I've gone on this diatribe of things, but I want to get into that because it was a really interesting thing that kind of ties into this movie and the conversations.
Well, what is it? I want to know now.
Okay, I came across this article, and it was just in my feed. It was saying that things that men do that are creepy, that they don't realize are creepy to women. because there are things we all do that we don't understand. That might be, and what I did was I read all these women's comments, and all of them were sharing, and I brought up something that happened to me. I was talking to one of my actresses because I don't think about we don't think about this stuff because we don't have to navigate our lives that way. We usually aren't afraid. You got to get bigger, man. Drink your milk. But
Drink your milk.
Like if I want to walk right now, it's late, it's dark. If I wanted to walk down the street, I wouldn't be terrified to do it. I wouldn't think anyone would hurt me. I wouldn't think twice about it. A woman can't do that, without possibly being approached or hurt or whatever. So my actress told me about that. She goes, I have to be considerate where I go, what time I go, what time of day, how do I get to my car? Someone might jump me in the parking lot, all these type of things that we don't even have to worry about it every day. So I remember I was walking, we had gone to a record shop downtown Louisville, and we were walking back to the car, and I was kind of leading the way behind my wife and my daughter. And we were parked on the street, dark street. And just as I was crossing the street to go to our car, and my daughter and my wife were behind me, but they had stopped for a minute. I didn't know, but there was a young woman who had parked behind us, and she was crossing the road. And basically, if you're looking at it, I'm like almost walking right toward her because I'm parked in front of her. And I noticed her fear, and I noticed her jump over, like move over away from me. And it hit me. Oh, she's afraid of me. I'm this large man on a dark street walking toward her, right? Now, I never would have thought of that before. I have no intentions. I wasn't even looking at her. I noticed her out of peripheral, but I'm just walking to my car. But she was alarmed enough to move. And I shared the story, and I said, it made me feel bad that she has to feel that fear. She had to feel that she had to move away from me because I might be a threat. So I had a lot of women comment, and I read all these art, and a couple of men jumped in, and so many of the men were like, well, I bet if he was good looking and rich, he wouldn't care, or all this type of things. Like, I think this is just, a lot of them thought that this was all just part of the Me Too thing, and that this isn't real, that women are starting to be corrupted by articles like this. I'm like, you guys think this is real new, that women have never felt this or dealt with this since the beginning of mankind, that men might rape them and kill them? Like, you think this is a new agenda from the left? And the thing is, there were women, all these women who were sharing stories were talking about they never had a job where they weren't sexually harassed. There were women who were in their 70s sharing stories in these comments. Most of these women were sexually attacked, abused, and none of these men were reading it or taking them serious. All they were like is, you're just making us men look bad. And one guy said, what, we can't pursue women anymore? And someone says, I think you better look at the word pursue. And they showed they shared a clip of Michael Myers chasing Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween. It's like, yeah, you're not supposed to pursue us, and because that's like, you're trying to get us, you're pursuing us, we're not game to be caught and trapped, and like, you're not supposed, like, it's just, there's behaviors. And again, these men didn't think there's anything wrong with that or this terminology, like, and they just attacked these women and just basically said they're not listening to them. They're like, and I think Sean said something about the cops and the way the cops react to her when she comes to them. Now, first of all, there's two things working there. First of all, they're in a bad neighborhood. They probably just think she's a meth head or a crackhead because they're in that neighborhood we just saw. Right. And she's all dirty and disheveled and everything, and she's acting frantic. And he's like, back up off the car. I mean, for all he knows, she has AIDS or something. Like, can you put your hand off my car? But the thing is, there are so many stories of the way police deal with these things because they see it all the time. And a lot of times it's nothing, or, there's nothing they can do. Like, a lot of cops won't even respond unless something's actually happened. Did they do something? They threatened me, but did they do anything? Has anything happened? And it made me think of the guy who wrote I Spit on Your Grave. You know, he wrote that movie because he and his wife, his daughter, and a friend found a woman who'd been gang raped in New York City in the park, Central Park. And they rescued her. They pulled her out of the bush. She was naked. She had been raped, gang raped. They took her to the police station, and they said it was like she was raped again the way the police treated her.
Yeah.
Like they did not sympathize. They did not. They were the way they questioned her, the way they treated her, appalled him, and that's why he wrote A Spit on Your Grave. Because I feel like she was being raped again by the police, and you know, so I don't think those cops were too not. I don't think they were inaccurate. I mean, they did go with her. They did go investigate. They did go see her. But as I said, like what she's saying sounds crazy. And like saying, we're seeing no evidence. Doors locked. We see a broken window. The only crime we see is your crime. You broke a window. You have no identification. You have nothing to make us believe this. And again, there's so many stories of women who report things like this, abused wives, things like that. I won't say who, but I have a friend who's homosexual who told me a story about how the cops treated him when he had a problem, and it was a clear problem, and the cops just would not help him because of their homophobia. There was a clear homophobic vibe they were getting from the cops, and the cops were siding with the dangerous person. The person who was committing, was victimizing them. And so I don't think that's off. I don't think it's an inaccurate thing. And this isn't to say cops are like that. I don't agree with that. I don't think all cops are dicks. They're good people. And we're not going to get in that whole conversation, but I don't agree with that. But
well, I mean,
they have a job to do.
Yeah, and well, I was going to say in the movie, it's not just, you know, like when she approaches the cops, I was thinking about it while you were saying that. She's also a black woman. So,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a whole nother cup of conversation to get into that we're not going to get into because, you know, that's kind of.
She's a black woman who's been in a hole. I think
For,
she's been in a
like,
hole
a
for
week.
like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
She probably smells bad.
Right.
She looks like shit. She's acting erratic. She's in a shitty neighborhood where there's probably drug addicts and shit.
Yeah, there's no like respectable people. That's one things I wanted to get into about, well, who decided to put this Airbnb in this neighborhood and build up that one house?
Well, I think that's the thing about the dynamic of these two characters is that she is fully aware of everything going on around her. She makes conscious moments. She stops and pauses, listens to everything he says. Everything she does, she hesitates. She's very cautious. Even when she opens that door, the first thing she's like, nope, not going down there. You know, she's very conscious of everything. Justin Long's character is conscious of nothing. He is completely unaware. He's unaware that he's raped this woman. He doesn't think of it that way. He's unaware that he's a bad person. He's unaware that he's a piece of shit. He's probably unaware that the Airbnbs that he invested in, or these houses that he were in these neighborhoods that weren't worth shit. Like, he's, what about my Michigan properties? Like, they're not worth anything because they're in shitty neighborhoods. Like, why is there an Airbnb in that neighborhood? It's because the guy that owns it is clueless. And Justin Long is clueless the whole movie. He's even clueless to when he meets Richard Brake. He's not strong enough to put two and two together that this guy is a monster. This guy is a horrible person. He actually asks him, are you okay? Do you need something?
Yeah, well, why would you say that to somebody who's you find?
Yeah, if a woman walked in that room, she'd been fucking gone.
Yeah.
She's not helping that piece of shit guy. She would have read, oh, he's this guy who raped and filmed all these women. You know, he doesn't see that because he's completely unaware, because he's just self-centered and a predator himself. Like, that guy in the bed is not that much different from him in terms of, Richard Brake is a psychopath, of course, but Justin is also a predator.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, I mean, they set that up right when you meet him. He's driving along, not a care in the world, you know, and then all of a sudden he gets this call and he's being canceled, essentially. And it's because he forced himself on a female, you know.
So he's like, he sees that tunnel and that room with a camera, and he doesn't even care. That's my favorite part of the movie, though. When he just pulls out that tape measure.
Yep.
He's measuring it like any care, and he's like, he just sees it like, ew, that's gross. Like, and he sees like the cages. He's like, what the fuck is that? Okay, keep measuring. Like, he just has no care. Like, he is just breezing through life, and all he's thinking about is himself and money. And
square footage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that was one of the funniest parts was the square footage thing. Like, how are you going to really add that to the square footage? I mean, it's, first of all, the first thing you see when you get down there is a room with a nasty ass bed and a camera, you know, and then you go a little bit further and it just gets darker and darker and it goes down further and further. You know, it's like, what are you thinking at this point, Justin Long?
He's not. He's an idiot. He's just some, like,
yeah.
He's just in his own world. He's entitled. He's, you know, he's just a bad guy.
He is.
But he's someone who doesn't realize he's bad. That's the thing.
No,
a lot of these people have no idea how bad they are or what the things they do and how they cross lines and they victimize people without understanding. Like, he probably didn't think that anything would come about that girl. Like, and he just keeps calling her a fucking bitch. That fucking bitch. But he knows what he did, you know?
Mm-hmm. He will even admits it to his friend in the bar. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. His character is, I do know. His character is terrible. I mean, everybody's, other than, I mean, the movie makes you think that at the beginning of the movie that Keith is a terrible, you know, this guy. I thought he was going to be some kind of guy who, like, maybe owned the house, was going to take her down to the basement. That's what I thought was going to happen. I thought
that was the original plan, but he realized that I've seen this movie before.
Yeah,
this is boring.
Right. And so when he gets, you know, he comes back from wherever he was, because I thought he was in the basement when I first saw it. I mean, Seth, what were you thinking when you first saw that part? Were you thinking the same thing? That he's gone when she comes back from her interview?
Yeah, I was suspicious of him, so I thought even when he went down there and he just disappeared and she went down looking for him, I thought that was like him luring her down there. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the fucking inbred comes out of there and smashes his fucking melon open.
Yeah, I was not ready for that. I did not expect that.
And then he wonderfully cuts away from it and lets us linger, like, without any answers for another, which is a great. The structure of this film is really cool, like that, where he does that. Like, yeah, I was just like, wow, this is something. And the thing about it, when you go back and watch the movies, you realize, oh, Keith is actually a really good man, really good dude, and it's heartbreaking because she liked him. That's why she goes down there. Like, people are like, she's dumb. Why is she going down there? Because she genuinely likes him. Because he didn't try anything.
Mm-mm.
They even wake up in the morning. He didn't try anything overnight.
No, the worst thing about him was that he had that screaming fit in the middle of the night while he was sleeping.
Yeah, he just had night terrors or something.
Yeah.
But other than that, he was respectful. He was even when he asked to help with the bag, she says no. He goes, I'm good. He was very. I think his awkwardness again was that he was trying to do and say the right things to make her comfortable. And I think she genuinely liked him because when she's going on her job interview, she kind of looks at the driver's license and zooms in and looks at his face and smiles.
Yeah,
like she likes him a lot, and he is. And when you go back and watch the movie the second time, you realize, oh, he really was a sweet guy, doing the right things and being a man, letting her come in, letting her sleep on the bed. He was doing as many right things as he should, and he wasn't a bad guy. He had no motives, and he died. You know, he didn't realize. Like, people were like, well, why is she going down there? It was like, well, first of all, she doesn't know that she's in a horror movie. You know, we know she's in a horror movie, but she doesn't go down there at first. But then her curiosity gets to her. But as soon as she sees that room with the camera, she's like, fuck no, I'm out. When he gets there, she's like, no, we're leaving now. He's like, well, I haven't seen it, you know? And
yeah, I mean, that was like, that kind of bothered me. It's like, dude, why are you getting back down? That's why I thought that he was luring her. was because he was like not listening to her. Also, being a man about it. Really.
Yeah, he wasn't listening in that moment.
Yeah,
he wasn't taking her intuition. She's following her intuition. This is not good. There may not be anybody down there right now, but I'm not staying here one more second till someone returns or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then he gets lost in the dark. Not lost, but she can't see him anymore. And it's that's it. And I do like the transition that you were talking about. He gets his head fucking pummeled into the side of the wall, and you're like, what happened to her? And then it cuts to Justin Long singing a song, Not a Care in the World.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is? I'm thinking like, what does he have to do with this? He's in another we know
California.
We know she's in Detroit. So how does this tie together? And we find out that he owns the Airbnb after like a good 10-15 minutes of the movie, which was good though, because I like the way they set that up, and everything with Justin Long to the point where he's captured or whatever you want, because the way he is with capture, it's not quotes, but it was to me like watching, it was cringy and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah.
But
it's also turning the tables. I was talking to my wife about the whole being force fed the bottle.
Yeah.
And the breast and all that, like she's raping him in some ways. It's like tables are turned. It's like you could say the bottle's a penis and he's forcing it to him, which he did to this girl, this actress, and probably done to several other women.
But the one thing about all this with him, he doesn't learn a goddamn thing.
No.
It's like he sacrifices her later on, and that wonderfully, I love the way that scene worked out when the mama, whatever she is, like she dives in after the girl because he lets her go over the side of the whatever, and she dives and grabs her and turns it like it's like it reminded me of The Dark Knight when what's her name. And then they, land on the back. I like that. That was I gotta admit, I think it was my favorite part of the whole movie was when she had to save her baby because she was smart about it. He wasn't. He was being a dickish man about it, and she was being smart about it. She knew she was in a bad situation, and she was just going to deal with it. And he was just like, no, fuck this, fuck that. Yeah.
She was going to endure and do what she needed to survive.
Yeah.
And his male arrogance and all that shit got him killed. Got him killed. Like his bad behavior, like he did wrong. Like she just wanted a baby because she was warped from that video. Like she just probably never was out in the world. She had no idea what was beyond those walls, and she just the only thing she had was that videotape of motherhood and how wonderful motherhood is, and breastfeeding your baby.
Breast milk comes in after you have a baby, though. It's not just there, right? So my question is, she had to have had a baby at some point, and pretty recently, because you dry up at some point. I mean, I'm going off my experience with my wife. She dried up after.
I don't think we can really apply logic and rationale to that character.
I know. I just
because it's why I don't think he intended. I think he just like I'm making you don't say, well, what are the Deadites and why are they this and why are they that? Like I think it's just let's have a crazy, wacky third act where things just go insane and we don't really know.
I know, but my brain thinks about stuff like that. Did she have a baby at some point?
Well, that's the thing. Like the guy, there's a lot of holes in that because the homeless man says she's been there for 40 years. But he said when you make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, she's supposed to be the inbred copy of a copy of a copy, which means she can't be 40 years because. I mean, I'm sure Richard Brake was doing it before we see him in 1985.
Oh, yeah, he may have been doing it in the 50s.
Yeah. But, for all, as long as him, so we don't know how long he was doing this, but if she was 40, then that means he had to have been doing it, 60s, 70s. Of course, Richard Brake is probably 50-something, 60 years old, probably 60,
he could have been easily 75 years old in that movie.
So he's probably been older than that in the end.
Yeah.
In the 80s, he was probably in his 50s. So, and who knows how long he'd been living there. I ain't going nowhere,
And how long he had been doing that. And I wonder at what point he ends up underground like that, Like, that's me thinking again way too much about other things that don't really matter. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just like I want to know these things as
Yeah.
a
Well, it is
viewer.
possible that she had a baby, or like, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, there's a scene where Justin is outside of his door, and he sees her, and she doesn't go. She goes away. Like, she like backs up. Like, is she afraid of him? Or she like? I imagine she's the one taking care of him or feeding him or whatever. But
yeah, because he gets to stay in that room with him a lot while she's on his tail. She probably is afraid of him. He probably beat her and stuff, even though
he's a monster.
Yeah,
he kept
he's
them in
exactly
cages. That pit was something he made. He probably kept his women down there. The cages probably put the children in those cages.
He's the barbarian.
He is a barbarian, which the definition. I pulled up the definition of barbarian because the title comes up a lot, and it kind of explains the mother character, because first of all, they live on Barbary Street.
No, do they?
But apparently the barbarian was just a placeholder. He didn't it doesn't have any meaning to him. One interesting thing though is to spell barbarian, the word Airbnb, the letters in Airbnb can spell out barbarian. Like only those letters are in barbarian.
That's funny. Yeah, you're right. I see it.
It says, from classical origins, the Hellenic stereotype of barbarism evolved. Barbarians are like children, unable to speak or reason properly, cowardly, effeminate, luxurious, cruel, unable to control their appetites and desires, politically unable to govern themselves. So, it could kind of explain all that, and just barbarism and in general, like the way the men are, like the way Richard Brake's character treats a woman. Women as just something to drag home and do whatever he wants with them. Is a barbarian.
Like a caveman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do think. Okay, let me ask you guys this question. I want an answer from both of you. Do you think we'll get a prequel to this, starring Richard Brake?
He was asked that in an interview, and he said, "No, I don't want to see. I don't want to do that movie." He said, if anything, I want to do a sequel where the mother has to be incorporated into society and go to college.
Oh my God.
To get a job.
It's like, do you ever see that episode of South Park with the people who came from the future, the Goobacks, and they were taking everybody's jobs because they worked for cheap labor or whatever, and they couldn't talk? That's what it would be like. God, could you imagine? I mean, she'd be a lethal protector, I mean, she did everything she could to protect her baby. At the very end. God. Oh,
no, I don't think this movie's overrated at all. I think I think it was a blast. It was. Yeah, I didn't know where it was going. It kept taking left. A lot of people said it was predictable. I'm like, really? You predicted that this giant 6'8" naked lady, whatever, is going to come out and kill Skarsgård? I mean, it was really good casting because Skarsgård, because he says, "What do you think? I'm some kind of monster?" It's like, well, yeah, he's fucking Pennywise, and people know him as Pennywise.
He's been a villain more than once.
Yeah, and it's like, and Justin Long is usually the nice, naive guy next door guy.
Think about him in Jeepers Creepers,
And that's the thing about,
he was like a misogynistic version of Derry from Jeepers Creepers. Very curious.
I'm glad they cast him because originally he thought of casting Zac Efron in that role as AJ.
Oh no, I like Justin Long in this role.
Yeah, but I think it works because it plays part of that house. That house is nice, but we don't know what's underneath it or inside it. And that's the same way. Good look, like those guys saying, "Oh, if he was good looking and had money, women wouldn't care." It was like, no, like any nice looking house or whatever, we don't know what's inside that layer
or around it. We didn't even know what was around it. The first shot you see of that house, it's raining outside, but it's a nice little place. Mm-hmm. And then later on you see, like, this is not a place anyone would stay if they saw it in daylight.
If she'd arrived, she'd not stay there.
Well, he did though. That's the other thing.
Yeah. He tells her, "You don't want to sit out in your car. I'm not letting you sit out in your car."
Yeah.
And make calls. You're gonna stay here.
Oddly enough, I think it was safer. Although the bum guys did say she comes out at night. So
yeah,
because like he was trying to. I like that part too when he's chasing her down. She's freaking out. I
hey,
mean,
girl, get away from that house.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like if you would have just listened to him, you may have been okay. But no, because he gets he gets dealt with too.
Yeah.
Like nobody is safe in that neighborhood, that stretch of the road or whatever. That's why. Okay, yeah. There's nothing predictable about this movie because you like what this. I think this movie's brilliant in a lot of ways. You don't know what the bum's up to, because anytime you see a bum like that, generally they're up to no good, in movies.
You're a woman. You see a large man running at
Yeah.
you, and he's homeless, and he's yelling crazy shit. Of course, she's going to run in that house
Well,
and not listen to him.
Then you got Alexander. I mean, Skarsgård. It's Alexander, right?
Bill.
Yeah, that's
His brother is Alexander.
Yeah, I like him too, though.
Northman.
But you got Bill Skarsgård, who played Pennywise. We all know him as Pennywise. So an iconic horror character. So you're like, okay, so this guy, he plays a villain, a very well-known villain, and I think he was cast expertly because it made you think, okay, I know where this is going. I think he's going to be the killer. He's going to lure her down to the basement, so you got that in your mind. But then, the mama pops up and bashes his fucking head in, and then that's the other thing is as the tunnel gets deeper and deeper, you have no idea what's going on. And then you find out that Richard Brake's down there in bed dying with all these videotapes in a crusty ass room. It's like, you guessed that? When somebody says, I saw where this was going, you guessed that. And then he was going to kill himself.
Yeah.
And then did you guess also that Justin Long, they were working together to get away from the mother or whatever you want to call her, and when they get to the top of that thing, that he's just going to let her
throw her off.
And then I'm like, oh shit, he just did that. And then all of a sudden you see the shot like from her point of view, and the mother's jumping after her. You thought that was going to happen too? I didn't think that was going to happen. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of quietly cheered when she was jumping down. I was like, yeah, because I thought that was so much fun.
So shoot her web and break her neck.
I like the Dark Knight.
It's gonna say. The people that was predictable, and it's not. It's like it was not that. Like he purposely started taking left turns. He set you up to think he knew what you're doing. But again, the stupid choices. She is not making stupid choices. You want to go back and watch. There's so much. Mentioning Richard Brake, there was a funny story I read that Richard Brake talked about on Instagram that he went and saw this movie in a theater, and a few rows back were some teenagers who were really vocal and really into it and scared and creeped out by it. He goes, and when the show was over, they were walking up out and they had their cell phone lights on so they could see, and they caught Richard Brake's face in the light and screamed and ran the fuck out of there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool, man. He needs to get more roles. I like him. But yeah, she does everything that I think that in that situation, everybody is an expert in every situation in a horror movie. Oh, I would have done this, or I would have done that.
Traditionally, people make bad choices in all these horror movies. All these movies we love,
they do, but
people
she
made
did everything
stupid
right.
choices.
She tried it. She thought that she could kill her by running her into the house. And there's a moment when you see the cop car that you're like, oh, well, there's safety right there. Nope. It's so
she can't believe it that they're not helping her. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah,
you're leaving.
Yeah, so she does everything right that you think should be right, but it doesn't go the way that you think it should go, and that's what the beauty of this movie, in my opinion. I love this movie.
Yeah,
it's probably going to peek into my pop into my top 50.
It's one of those movies, and every time I mention we had it as number one or it's my favorite, people are like, "Really, Barbarian? Really? You like that movie? I thought it was shit. I thought it was overrated. I thought it was awful. I thought it was stupid." And it's like I guess I'm stupid then because I was completely entertained by this thing.
I was too. I mean, I went in without any kind of outside opinion when I saw this one, which I love, by the way. And there's nothing like forming an opinion before you see anybody else's opinion,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I really enjoyed about going into this and seeing it. And I put my, the thing I made last week saying that. Barbarian was my number one, had my top 10 or whatever, and people were like, Barbarian started out great, then got really dumb fast. Did it?
No.
I don't think it did. You know,
it turned into, like I said, a Sam Raimi movie. Like he said, this is my love letter to. He said my love letter to Jordan Peele and Sam Raimi and Takashi Miike, because he said Audition really made an impression on him, and so he felt Audition kind of inspired this. But there were a lot of things that inspired it, like the flashbacks with Richard Brake's character, the way it's shot, you know, like kind of that fisheye wide lens following him behind. He got that from that movie Angst from the 80s. But he also was thinking of Alan Clark's Elephant, which I don't know if you guys saw. It's a British filmmaker. Great fucking movie. It's a short. It's all about the IRA. It's very upsetting because, you know, in the IRA back in the 70s, 80s, all that, there were just all these senseless killings and bombings and murders in Ireland. And so the movie is just you're following people. It's just clips or like scenes, endless scenes of you falling behind somebody who's walking, and they walk into a soccer field or a building and they shoot somebody to kill somebody. And then you cut to another scene. It's the same thing. You're following behind these people or guy, and they shoot somebody. And it just keeps doing that for like 45 minutes to the point where you're like, good God, like you get sick of it. You get like, this is what's the point? And that was the thing. It was like, what's the point of all this senseless violence that's happening in Ireland at that time? And so Gus Van Sant made a movie called Elephant. And he called it Elephant because he did the same thing. You're falling behind. But his movie is about the Columbine shooting, which is, you know, sort of similar. So he employed that in this movie. The way we're following Richard Brake behind him most of the time in that sequence.
I just got an alert. We just passed 24,000 followers on Facebook. Just want to throw that out there.
Jordan Peele, I didn't mention. Jordan is a friend of his, and he sent Jordan the script, and Jordan gave him some really good notes on this movie and gave him some ideas for it. So Jordan had a little bit of uncredited touches on this film.
I feel like I could see that. Well, I wanted to mention some of these Facebook things. We got some, like this woman got it. She said, "I'll never rent an Airbnb again." So, like, you know, some people did. I think it's that whole situation where a lot of people may have liked it, because I feel like a lot of people did like it, but the loudest ones are the ones that didn't like it. You know, like almost all of these comments are, except for this one, says, "Geez, movie is so overrated. Just a simple, boring ass story with subplot trying to make it seem interesting." It was overhyped, of course, but
it's also not scary. People thought it was supposed to be this scary, frightening film. I mean, it's kind of, but it's not. It's more of a suspenseful feeling that you get from the movie. Like,
yeah, it's an edge of your seat type of movie.
Yeah,
because you don't know what's going to happen next.
But it's not a people.
How did you think it was boring?
Well, some people want to go on these movies and they want to be traumatized. Or if they're not traumatized, then the movie's not a horror movie to them, and it's not effective. And I hear that so much. Like, I wasn't even scary. I was like, no, it turned into this crazy, wacky fucking roller coaster movie. He was just trying to entertain you. Like I said, I'm just making a B monster movie. Is what it is.
My question with these people who want to be traumatized, what scares anybody anymore? You know, like I don't like. For me, I don't think I've been scared of actually scared of a movie in a long time. Like the last thing I saw that freaked me out may have been The Autopsy of Jane Doe, and it just kind of like gave me chills, you know. And It Follows did the same thing.
There's a few other little Easter egg type things where when Justin Long's going through Bill Skarsgård's suitcase, he finds a copy of Jane Eyre. In that story, there's a story about a woman who is imprisoned by her husband in a room for years, and she's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last song in the movie, "Be My Baby" by the Ronettes.
Yeah.
which plays
perfection,
into the perfect choice for the mother.
But I laughed out loud when it started playing. I was like, "Oh my god!"
but there's kind of a darker possible connection to that, in that Ronnie Spector said that Phil imprisoned her in their home for like 7 years, that she never left her house, and he threatened to kill her. And all that.
Spector was a fucking creep.
Yeah. So 2 little connections of women who were held in homes against their will by men. So I hadn't seen them. This is actually the second time. I watched it twice today, actually.
Did you really?
Yeah, because I hadn't seen it since the theater, because I don't get to rewatch movies a lot anymore.
No, because you're trying to get to 10,000 by the end of the year.
Well, I'm trying to watch. Well, I'm 47 years old, and there's thousands of movies I have not seen from the past, and I'm trying to watch. I'm like, well, I don't need to rewatch everything. The thing, if I go back and rewatch a movie now, it's because I wanted to study the filmmaking in it. I'm wanting, or we're doing it on the show,
right?
Or it's something that I just fucking loved. Like, it's one of my all-time favorite movies now.
Yeah.
You know, like when Drive came out, I just kept putting that on. Or No Country for Old Men, I just kept putting it on. And but normally that doesn't happen. I can love a movie and still like only seen it once now. So it's just not like the old days.
I hate to say I haven't watched a Star Wars movie in a couple of years.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, when we decided to do this movie, I'm like, good, I get to rewatch it again, and really, because again, when I'm watching it, I had no idea what I was going to see. I didn't know if Skarsgård was innocent, and like, so you watch it now, and you're like, oh, he was actually really doing as much of the right thing as he could, and his creepiness was out of his trying too hard to convince her that he is safe.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was all for her consideration.
Turns out they would have been a really good couple. I mean, because she was trying to be a part of that documentary or whatever, and he was part of that whole lifestyle or whatever it was. I don't remember exactly.
It was like an artist who bought up probably what do you call it? What do they call it when the white people come in and gentrification of Detroit, probably. Yeah. Artists turning old, broken down. They basically said they get the houses and places for free because no one will buy them, and so they're turning them into like probably art studios and art galleries and music studios and things. But yeah, he was connected to. He'd seen the documentary her friend made, and all that. So you kind of look at it and go, they would have actually probably worked. And she was coming from an abusive relationship. Her boyfriend.
You get that. That's the first thing you see, I think, is her ignoring that call too.
Yeah.
From Marcus or whatever his name. I think it was Marcus, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this movie. For anybody to say that this movie's dumb, they need to really watch this a little bit closer, because it's not dumb at all. I mean, there's so much there to understand why she was the way she was and what's good. I mean, I love this movie. It's seriously going to be in my top 50.
I know a lot of people don't like comedy and horror, and I think when it turns to the Justin Long scene, you're like, what is this? And then it's like really kind of funny. And when he pulls out you see how aloof he is, and how it's just like, you would never think this is a horror movie, and he has no idea there's horror. And again, it goes back to that Hitchcock thing too, where you're like, I think most people like Justin Long. I mean, I love the guy. And when I met him in person, he was just like everything you want him to be. He was just so funny and nice and inviting. And I even mentioned the Sasquatch gang, and he actually went into the character like, whoa, is that? And he started doing the voice and playing the character. And so I think we all really like that guy. So to see him play this guy who's a rapist and has no guilt for it, and doesn't think he did anything wrong, and is only thinking about his finances and his, like if he was innocent, he would probably be behaving a lot differently.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
he'd be like, he wouldn't be able to function. He'd be sick over it.
Instead of trying to defend himself. Usually the guilty ones are always trying to defend themselves or put blame on somebody else.
like a lot of those guys in the comment section of that thing, like all these women are commenting about being victims, and they were like, "Yeah, it's just this Me Too shit, and I don't believe it.
No,
It's just a
men don't know what
push
it's like to
agenda."
be a woman. I mean,
No,
I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I'm not going to say I do, but that's a general man reaction because we don't know what it's like to be a woman, and that's all I'm getting out of that is that these guys have no idea what it's like to be a woman. Just like white people don't know what it's like to be a black person.
yeah, that's the same way. I've heard black men talk about how they have to be aware of when they go out, where they go, how they carry themselves, how they speak, because our culture has put it in our head that they're dangerous and
Hmm.
they're angry and they're violent and they get hurt, and that's how they're presented. So I have a lot of black friends that are like, their dads or their moms have to tell them you can't do this and you need to carry yourself this way and behave this way, or you're going to get pulled over by the cops, or people are going to call the cops on you. And
the talk is what I've heard it called.
yeah, and so you tell white people that and they go, what? That's bullshit. I don't believe that.
Yeah,
It's like,
we
well,
get the
so you kind of want to say like, well, tell me your experiences of being a woman. Tell me your experience. Like Bill Burr always cracks me up because I've heard him on podcasts where I think it was Bert Kreischer was like saying stuff about, they would talk about black, and Bill's married to a black woman. And,
he is? I didn't know that.
yeah, and so Bert would go on about something, and Bill would like, yeah, please tell me about your experience as a black man in America. He just tell me, like, just enlighten me, because he said, I don't think about it. Because he said one time he was talking to his brother-in-law, and he was talking about they were going down to like Mississippi or Louisiana. And he goes, oh, you got to go to this restaurant. He's talking about all these barbecue places. Can you go check this out? He goes, I'm not thinking because I'm a white dude.
You're right.
And he goes, and my wife's like, no, you are not fucking going there. You do not go here. You do not go there. You just think of this. So, yeah, it's like and the thing is, like, people try to dismiss.
That's the definition of white privilege, by the way.
Yeah, they don't want to listen to it because you haven't experienced it, so it doesn't exist. And so all these women are talking about it, and women in their 70s, 50s, 40s, teenagers, 20s are talking about their experiences, and all these guys are going, I don't believe it. It's articles like this that are a problem. It's like, no, these are the articles that are saying, hey, tell us your story. You're allowed to now. And,
should have been the whole time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to get to about this movie before we're getting close to the end of the show here? I've been taking some notes on the show about different things I want to talk about in the future with different shows. But Seth, is there anything you want to? I know you've been pretty silent today in your third screen Artur direction.
You're going a little off camera a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
give me a Dutch angle. Can you do that?
There. You're a little soft too. I need to focus.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. We talked about how soft you were, so you have to think about everywhere you go, and
that was a private conversation, man.
No.
Oh shit.
Anything you want to mention, Seth, before we go? You want to do final thoughts? What do you think?
I'll do my final thoughts because I've only seen this the once. I didn't get a chance to rewatch this prior to tonight's show. But I enjoyed it. I went in without seeing the trailer. I didn't know what to expect. There was lots of twists and turns. Definitely not predictable. But yeah, it was. It's a fun movie, and yeah, that's about it. That's all I gotta say. It's fun.
Works for me. What about you, Nate? Anything else you want to say about the movie?
I just fucking love Justin Long in this film. Like, how much of a dick he is. Like one of my favorite little details is when he's like looking at her laptop trying to sign in on it. He can't. Of course, he doesn't have the the password, and he just like throws it across the room, like it's somebody's laptop. He just tosses and throws it across the room. Like he has no care about anyone else but himself. That moment right there just says, of course he's mad. He goes, "Who the fuck's in my house? Who's in here? Fucking squatters or something." But like, so fuck their shit. But
I just like Justin Long in general. And
I just love him too. And you get a little nod to Jeepers Creepers when he gets his eyes gouged out. He got his eyes replaced. So there's little things like that. I'm interested to see what Zach does. I like the idea that he wrote this as an exercise as a writer. He didn't sit down to write a great script or something he thought would ever get made. And the thing is, like, a lot of people turned this down. 824 turned this down. He took a day 24 and they had no.
Did they really?
Yeah. And
that's not their style of movie anyway.
He actually had backing for the movie, and then the guy that was backing it, and I think it was from France, passed away. So then they lost the backing.
Oh
wow. So he's just people don't understand how hard it is to get a movie made in general. As I say, it's a miracle that the movie even gets made. And I think I like to see what he does again, what he does next, because he said he did that Miss March movie. That's not really I didn't want to make a sex comedy. That's not what I wanted to do.
That movie's like really old, isn't it?
Yeah. And he said, this is more what he wanted. He wanted to be a filmmaker. And this was kind of his crack, and he got to do it. And he never thought anyone would even see it. I mean, it was a low budget movie shot in Bulgaria. It
was.
Yeah, except for the stuff in Detroit and all that. I mean, like that whole street is just a bunch of facades. There's not real houses, in there. I guess that's how they were able to change them so much, like make it look real. Because and also we had to mention that most of the movie is practical. He mentioned that. He said, I didn't want anything in my movie that John Carpenter didn't have in 1982 when he made The Thing. He goes, the heaviest CGI is the grass in the flashback, because they could not get the grass to grow to be that green, nice looking. So that's CGI. But it's as practical as it could be.
That's refreshing to hear.
Yeah. So, and you watch it, you can tell it's. I can't watch anything in the movie. I mean, maybe other than the leap off the thing, maybe.
No, that was practical.
Yeah, but I do like the editing. Someone mentioned the editing. I think it was Luke.
Yeah.
I like the cuts. I like the transitions. I like how when she enters the house, the music swells and it cuts to the title. Like, she's just entered danger, and here's the title, Barbarian. The cuts when the Skarsgård gets killed. The cuts when they fall in the basement or the hole, and she comes up and shushes them. Cut. And then the way it cuts to Be My Baby, directed by Zach at the end, right after she shoots Mama. And then it cuts back to her getting up and walking off.
Yeah.
Surviving. And again, something the guy, Gavin de Becker, said in his book about fear as a gift is he said a lot of women who were victimized feel like they didn't do the right thing or they made mistakes. And he said, you didn't, because you're here. You survived. You did something right. And so she did. She's a final girl. She made enough choices that she survived this, and she walked away.
Yeah, she did.
And I think, and it's a tender moment because when she gets to kill the mother, because it meant her no harm.
No, she just wanted to be her baby.
And even like when she doesn't she kiss her lips and put it on her forehead before she shoots her? I mean, it's the mama does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad movie in some ways if you look at it that way. That this thing that just wants to be a mother and take care of her. So yeah, there's a lot of things you could read into this movie. Again, Zach says that's not a lot of that stuff was intended. He didn't set out to make an agenda or a message, or he just he goes, maybe he said, I am aware of things, and I do educate myself, and I do think of women, and I do think of all these things. So if that stuff's in there, it's just because it's in me, which I really like that answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I didn't write this movie to have an agenda or to push a message, but maybe that's
part of who he is.
That's just who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are a part of my consciousness or subconscious, and maybe it came out in the writing. But everyone's quick to jump on that stuff and attack and blast and just write all this new. Any modern popular horror movie must have an agenda against me, and I'm tired of that. And let's all watch Terrifier 2 instead. But this movie's not that far from Terrifier 2, because Terrifier 2 is just a fucking fun, entertaining movie. Really, it's a cruel movie, but it's not played to be logical. There's nothing logical about Terrifier 2. It's a crazy, wacky, unrealistic film.
Yeah.
So don't criticize Barbarian and give that one a pass, or Malignant or anything, They're just so.
I kind of want to watch Malignant again. I haven't watched it since.
I'd watch it again because I didn't expect it to be that either. So maybe I just need to give it another look and say, okay, this is just a silly, crazy B movie, monster movie, and because people love that one. So,
I'm going to look back and check and see if we did, in fact, talk about Malignant. Because if we didn't, I may want to get into that one eventually. Because I like that movie. I know Keith really, really liked it, even though he's not on the show anymore. But yeah. Anyway, I guess, is there anything else you want to say before we go? Or are we gonna wrap her up for the night?
Yeah, I get so much pushback from this movie, but I don't see overrated, and I don't think it's a bad movie or predictable. All of the negative reviews I read were kind of all that same stuff, and I just I get it. Whatever, you can say that.
Is that because they can't figure out what else to say? Oh, it's overrated. It's not as good as I thought. I think that's one of the things why I liked it was because I didn't see any kind of reviewing or anything like that. I went in completely free of that.
I had no influence on this thing. I went on opening day or opening Saturday, I guess.
I think I went the following day because you said it was good, and I was like, okay. So I got your review, but we don't always see eye to eye, so I could be like, well, this could be a piece.
And again, like you said, Reynolds was just smiling. My daughter wanted to tell everybody. She told my mom the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
She was excited. She couldn't wait to tell her the whole plot. She knew my mom wouldn't watch it because my mom doesn't watch horror movies.
Right.
But she wanted to tell her, so she told her the whole movie, scene for scene, note for note. And then my sister-in-law, she does kind of like horror movies. But she was talking on the phone. She's in Florida, so they were on the phone. And Lily really wanted to tell her, and Cindy was like, okay, go ahead, tell me. I want to hear you tell me. Because she just wanted to hear Lily tell her, the story. And so Lily told her the whole fucking movie again. And so that just that could change your opinion on a movie. But at the same time, like I loved it myself, and my wife loved it. My daughter loved it. So no, again, people talk about the critics. Critics gave it 92, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, what are the odds that maybe you didn't watch the movie right, or didn't enjoy it, or disliked it for different reasons or personal reasons? Because that's what happens. I don't say that you didn't watch it right or you didn't understand it and all that bullshit. I just think that some people go into movies wanting something and they don't get it and they're disgruntled. Just like Halloween Ends. I mean, we've talked about it 1,000 times. You go in and want something, you don't get it. So people went in wanting probably a brutal movie. It's called Barbarian, and it is brutal, but it's not that brutal. There's not a lot of gore and violence, all that, and it's played for laughs in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I did have my ideas of what the movie could be, and but
like
I didn't get what I like. Any of the ideas I had in my head, there were nothing like what I saw in film.
Well, it's like he said he doesn't have any interest in making that Richard Brake or Robert Brake, whatever, Richard Brake
Richard, yeah.
prequel because we've seen that movie. You know, we've seen the guy who kidnaps women, ties them up in his basement, and does all this shit. I don't find that entertaining. I don't want to watch that shit, you know, and we've seen it. Like, I'm glad that the movie didn't do that because I've seen it and I don't like it anymore. Like, it's just this gross shit. And it's like, I don't, to see the aftermath of what this guy did and let my imagination fill in the blanks, which is what this movie does.
You watched Barbarian with me, didn't you? Tell them what you thought of Barbarian. She saw it. Yeah, we're live. Tell them. What'd you think of Barbarian?
It was twisty.
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 Did you like it?
Mm-hmm.
Was it fun?
Yeah, I guess.
Yes. Were you able to guess what was going to happen the whole time?
No.
No. Okay.
Not even close.
Not even close. Yeah.
Like, whenever you told me that you thought that the guy was going to be like the killer or something,
yeah,
I was like,
he's probably. What about what was your favorite part of the movie? Do you remember?
Like the very end. I don't know why.
The very end.
It was weird though.
What are you talking about? Whenever she gets thrown off the whatever that was, yeah. And the mother jumps after her and dives after her, or what are you talking about? I don't know. I like that. That's my favorite part of the whole movie. I'm sorry. The movie's great, but I love that scene.
It's weird.
It is weird. Anyway, so that's our show, I guess, for the night.
Hello.
Brought to you by Helena. Stay here. I can talk to you every time. Okay.
Okay. That's it.
Anyway, thanks anyone who joined us or who watches later. We're gonna go. Don't forget to subscribe, of course, and we'll be back next week with a new episode. And Friday we are going to be talking about Friday the 13th, Part 7, as we continue to plow through the Friday the 13th movies. You guys have a great night. Seth, have a great night. Nathan, have an exquisite night. He said a lot more than you tonight, Seth. That's why I say that. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's how it goes. Anyway.
He's kind of tired. He has to think about every move he makes and every step he takes and every person he runs into. It can be a threat.
That's true.
It's exhausting.
It's very exhausting.
Very exhausting. That's why women always go to spas and get they just got to relax. It's so stressed out all day. Yeah. We don't think about that because we're not bothered, but Seth and women got to go to spas.
They're dangerous, man. Women are dangerous.
Yeah. It's true. I have some stories, but I'll leave that for regular romances if I ever do that again. Anyway, yeah, I've done a couple of them where I talk about past relationships and how many crazy girls I've dealt with. Anyway, nothing like Barbarian. I've never been chased down in a black hallway by 6'10",
breasts thrown into your mouth. Yeah,
breasts just flopping. What's funny, you know what? Bill Skarsgård has now been in 2 movies where a giant old lady's naked with her breasts are flopping around because it happened in the second It movie as well. So anyway, I hadn't mentioned boobs all night, so there you go. Boobs. And while my daughter's right there, so she loves it when I mention boobs.
No, I don't. I hate it.
Well, there you go. Anyway,
it's my opinion.
I know. Have a great night. We'll see you next week. And some of people we'll see on Friday. Goodbye.